All right, so let's investigate some inequalities. So we're going to get some clues or some rules about something that we need to do to our inequality. And we're going to use the same inequality every single time. We're going to always use -6 is less than 15. And then again, we're going to follow these clues. We're going to see what happens. We're going to create the new inequality, and then decide, is this new inequality a true or a false statement? So we've already kind of pieced together the first one. So let's look at how we arrive at our new inequality is going to be true for the very first one. So my rule for this very first inequality is to add 3 to both sides. So I'm going to show adding 3 to both sides. So I have 3 plus -6. Those are different signs. So I subtract and keep the sign with the most. That gives me -3. And then I have 15 plus 3, which would give me 18. So my new inequality reads, -3 is less than 18. That is a true statement. So let's move on to our next rule. Our next rule says to subtract 3 from both sides. So I'm going to rewrite this as -6 minus 3 and 15 minus 3. So remember, when I'm subtracting with a negative, to fix it, I need to do LCO. So leave it, change it, opposite. This turns into -6 plus -3. Since they have the same signs, I just add and keep the sign. So I get -9. And then 15 minus 3 is 12. So my new inequality reads -9 is less than 12. This is a true statement. Our next rule says to multiply both sides by 3. So if I do a +3 times a -6, that's going to give me -18. And 15 times 3 is 45. So my new inequality reads that -18 is less than 45. That is a true statement. My next rule says to divide both sides by 3. So I'm going to rewrite this again as -6 divided by 3, 15 divided by 3. So a negative divided by a positive is going to give me a negative, and 6 divided by 3 is 2, so I get -2. And then 15 divided by 3 is 5. So my new inequality states that -2 is less than 5. This is a true statement. So far, I have gotten all true inequalities. Let's move on to our next clue. Our next clue says to add -3 to both sides. So -6 plus -3 will give me -9. 15 plus -3 would give me 12. So my new inequality states that -9 is less than 12. That is a true statement. Our next one says to subtract -3. So I have -6 minus -3. Again, I need LCO to fix. So this is really just -6 plus 3, which gives me -3. 15 minus -3, again, LCO to fix. So this is really just 15 plus 3, which gives me 18. So my new inequality reads -3 is less than 18. This is a true statement. Our next one says to multiply by -3. So if I do -3 times -6, a negative times a negative gives me a positive. So this is 18. 15 times -3, a positive times a negative gives me a negative, and 15 times 3 is 45. So my new inequality states that 18 is less than -45. That is a false statement. Our next one says to divide by -3. So I have -6 divided by -3. Again, a negative divided by a negative gives me a positive, so that's +2. And then 15 divided by -3, a positive and a negative is going to give me a negative, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. So my new inequality states that 2 is less than -5, which again is a false statement. So the only time I got a false statement was when I multiplied or divided by -3. So now I want to know, how could I change those two false statements so that they are true? So I have to keep the numbers the same. I can't move the numbers. I can't change the numbers. So the only thing that I could think of doing to fix these and make these true statements is I could flip the inequality sign. So instead of it saying 18 is less than -45, I could make it say 18 is greater than -45. And then that is a true statement. Instead of it saying 2 is less than -5, if I flip the sign, I can make it say 2 is greater than -5, which again would be a true statement. So I need to flip the inequality signs to make them into true statements. So our important rule here to remember in the song that we're going to sing goes multiply, divide by a negative, flip. So anytime we solve an inequality and I'm having to multiply or divide by a negative number, I need to flip the sign in order to make it a true statement. So let's do some practice problems together. Okay, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. There we go. All right, so starting with number 1. Number 1 says negative 6x is greater than or equal to 36. So I'm going to build my t-chart. When I circle what's bothering the x, it's times -6. So the opposite would be divided by -6. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. And then I'm going to sing my song, multiply, divide by a negative, flip. So sure enough, I'm dividing by a negative number. So I need to flip the sign. So instead of greater than or equal to, it gets flipped to less than or equal to. My -6's cancel each other out on the left. So I get x is less than or equal to positive 36 divided by -6 gives me -6. So my solution of x is less than or equal to -6 is the very bottom one. So I'm going to put a box in that corner so it matches. Now for my graph, since it has an equal sign, I know that I'm looking for a closed dot. So it's either 1, 2, or 3. I need it to be on -6. So it's 1 or 2. And my arrow is going to point to the left. So it's the second one right here. All right, moving on to our next one. I have -4x is greater than -24. So let's build our t-chart. What's bothering the x is times -4. So the opposite would be divided by -4. I'm going to sing my song that goes multiply, divide by a negative, flip. So again, I'm dividing by a negative number. So I need to flip that greater than sign to become a less than sign. My -4's cancel each other out. So I get x is less than -24 divided by -4 is +6. So x is less than 6, which is our fourth solution right here. So I'm going to put a triangle in the box so it matches. Now my inequality does not have an equal sign as part of it. So it's going to get an open dot. So it's one of these. And it needs to be on +6. So it's actually the fourth one right there, right next to the solution. Our next one, 3, says x divided by 2 is greater than or equal to 3. I'm going to build my t-chart. What's bothering the x is this divided by 2. So the opposite would be times 2. And again, my song goes multiply, divide by a negative, flip. And I am multiplying, but it's by a positive number. So I'm not going to flip the sign. It's going to stay greater than or equal to. My 2's cancel each other out. So I get x equals 3 times 2, which is 6. So that happens to be our second solution right here. So I'm going to put a circle so it matches. Now again, it's got part of an equal sign, so it needs a closed dot. So it's 1 or 3. And it needs a closed dot on the number 6. So it's actually going to be number 3. Our next one, number 4, says x plus -3 is less than -9. So what's bothering the x is this plus -3. The opposite would be minus -3. Minus -3. So I know these are going to cancel out. And my song goes multiply, divide by a negative, flip. So I have a negative, but I'm not multiplying or dividing. So my sign stays the same. Now, since I'm subtracting with a negative, I need to do LCO to fix. So -9 plus 3 gives me 6. So -6. So x is less than -6, which is our top one up here. So I'm going to put the cloud in there. Now, again, it doesn't have an equal sign, so I need an open dot. And the only one I have left with an open dot is the bottom one. And let's prove this last one. So I have -1/3 x is less than or equal to 2. I'm going to rewrite this problem. Let's make sure I have room. So it looks like x over -3 is less than or equal to 2. What's bothering the x here is this divided by -3. So the opposite would be times -3. Again, my song goes multiply, divide by a negative, flip. So I need to flip the sign because I'm multiplying by a negative number. 2 times -3 is -6. So x is greater than or equal to -6, which is our middle solution right here, and it matches our last number line up top.